Greetings, it's Tegan from the Haunting Podcast. If you're brave enough, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss a single spooky episode. And now, back to the spooky and ooky. Hello, and welcome back to A Haunting Podcast. I'm your host, Tegan.
And I'm Jordan.
So today we are talking about children.
Always spooky. Kids scare the hell out of me.
Well, hopefully these stories will scare you, a little bit more than the actual children themselves. These are stories of experiences and things that kids have said.
Oh, always nice. I can't wait. This is usually a start of like a horror movie.
Children do like to be the main spot in horror films. It's always some like weird thing that they say or are seen in a film.
Yeah, I mean, there's always The Exorcist that still exists, right? The Omen, perhaps.
The Omen. Oh, what is it? Like Little Evil is another one. I know that's a comedy, but still. Is it though? That's the real question.
Yeah, is it though?
I'm going to start off our first story today. We're on Reddit, as I usually am when I tell these stories. Our first story is Mioxis. I babysat my little sister, and what she said to me still terrifies me. It was just my sister and I, and as I was preparing her food, I looked away to the closet for a brief moment. And as soon as I turned around, my little sister told me that somebody was behind me and vanishes as soon as I turn around. No. This
Definitely not.
This gave me goosebumps. I tried to calm her down and told her it was nothing. When we were upstairs, I told her I was getting something downstairs really quick. When I got back, my sister told me there was an old woman smiling at her, but vanished when I got back.
A bigger no.
When it was bedtime, as I was sleeping, I feel like I'm hearing footsteps around the door and downstairs. But the steps are like somebody trying to avoid being caught. My parents don't live in that house anymore. I asked my sister about it a few months later, and she looked terrified.
There's a big flag there that,
She still remembers.
It's looking like there's another part of that story.
Right?
Yeah.
She looked terrified, so I don't think I'm going to bring back any terrifying memories to her. Do you know what this reminds me of?
Don't say your St. Charles house.
No, not the St. Charles house. Did you ever hear about the man in the blue truck?
I vaguely remember it.
When I was younger, in a townhouse that we used to live in, I ran up to my mom one day all upset because the man in the blue truck got mud on my dress.
Big no-no.
Right? Big no-no. Mind you, I was not wearing a dress that day.
Okay.
But I was very insistent that the man in the blue truck got mud on my dress, and I brought him up several times. One time I was with my aunt, she was babysitting me, and I told her the man in the blue truck was in the kitchen. And she proceeded to rile me into, I think it was the family room, and refused to let me leave her lap until my mother came home.
Okay.
That is the man in the blue truck.
Okay. Well, with that disturbing piece out of the way, I have a user myself by the name of meltingfrog.
Creative.
Very cool name. I like it. Was looking for a Halloween costume with my mom to wear for elementary school, which was a big deal to me because I was homeschooled at first.
Okay, but that is a big deal. When you were homeschooled and then you go to a public school, big change.
It's big, massive change. We spent a couple of hours going to several stores and couldn't find anything that I liked. It was getting dark outside, so we were going to have to find something and go home. There was an old Halloween costume store, one of those really weird places that somehow is open year-round, that we decided to go to as a last-ditch effort to find something. We got out of the car and walked through the front doors and get 3 steps into place, and I instantly have all my hair on my body stand on end. I felt a huge oppressive pressure on my whole body.
Oh, absolutely not. These are phrases I know we say a lot in the show.
Fight or flight senses.
Yeah, this isn't like, no, something's actually wrong when your body's reacting like that.
Yeah, that's how you know something's wrong. I mean, I've had that feeling before.
I know, I was with you.
Not my greatest moment. Like the physical feeling of being hated by something, combined with my mom, and in the same instant, she turned to look at me. We didn't say a thing to each other, just turned around after only walking 3 steps in the store and went back to the car. I remember getting inside and asking my mom if she felt the same thing, and she said that she had essentially the same experience as me.
Oh, that's great. Both of you are having that experience.
Well, at least you're not gonna get that like that meme, the horror husband. When he's just like, "Oh, you're just being hysterical, honey. It's just the wind.
The ghost is right in front of him. He's like, it's just the wind. It's fine.
It's just the wind. You're being hysterical." We prayed together in the car and left. For perspective, I, as an elementary school kid who desperately wanted to fit in with the other kids that I had recently joined in public school, willingly left our literal last chance to find a costume that I thought would help me fit in, because of a physical feeling of being hated that I got when I walked into the store. As an adult, I can still remember how bad it was, and I'm getting tensed up just writing about it.
That is actually a pretty big deal when you're a child and you're trying to fit into a new school and you're just like willingly like, no, we need to leave.
Yeah. And it's a feeling that you're just going to remember forever. Right?
It is.
I did end up with a costume that year, though. We went home and she stayed up late with me working to cobble together a cowboy costume from things we had at home. I had a cowboy hat from my grandpa, some cowboy boots from somewhere, a button-down shirt that we ripped a bit to make it look rugged, a bright red bandana to tie around my neck, and a swanky leather vest we made from a brown grocery bag that we cut some super cool tassel fringes onto.
Good mom.
She made it work.
Yeah, you know what? I'm happy that one had a happy ending to it.
Yeah.
Very creepy experience, happy ending. Kid got his costume. He was probably a badass looking cowboy. Not even gonna lie.
Probably, but probably shaken up the next day a little bit, you know?
I would be. At least it was around Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things with me as a kid. I would probably not sleep that night.
Oh, no, you wouldn't have. You were a very frightened child.
I was a very scared kid. And I'm a big guy.
Now?
Yeah, now.
If anyone's curious, the experience we were talking about earlier, my sister Jordan and I went to a late night hot tub trip at my aunt's house. My aunt was gone on a vacation. Nobody was at the house, and yet the lights in the house were on. The hot tub was on. And the thing about the hot tub is it only stayed on for 30, 40 minutes? Something about that.
It was on when we got there.
It was on when we got there, but it shouldn't have been. My aunt had left quite literally in the morning, and this was 10 p.m. at night, something like that.
Yeah, it was very strange.
It was weird, and there was a very oppressive feeling of we are being watched, and we still tried. It was, and we still tried to go in the hot tub, but we ended up having to leave. It was very scary. It was really weird. We were all just very on edge. It was a strange experience.
Not good.
It was a very strange experience. Anyways, our next story is by Pumpkinsummer. I like that name, actually.
That's a good name.
My grandmother was a real estate agent in Rhode Island. I was staying with her one summer and she had to take me along to see a potential listing. It was a very strange house because it was circular. All rooms went along the outside and connected to each other, and there was a center part with a little garden and an open sky, which actually sounds kind of interesting, at least that part. She went up to the second story, and I stayed downstairs because I wanted to walk around the loop one time. The problem started when I had walked the full loop and I didn't see the stairs. I thought I must be confused, so I kept going to the next room and still couldn't find them. I started to panic, so I began running around the house as fast as possible, checking every room for stairs. There wasn't any. Finally, I sat down by the front door and started crying. A little while later, my grandmother ran into the entrance room looking just as panicked as I had been and asking where I was hiding and not answering her calls out to me. I never heard her calling out to me at all. Actually, the house seemed so still and quiet while I was sitting there that I was sure she had forgotten and left me there. We went home and didn't talk about it, really. 15 years later, I brought it up to my mom and asked if she knew anything, or was this a crazy childhood nightmare that I was remembering? Valid. She told me she remembered it clearly because my grandmother had called her and was absolutely spooked because she couldn't explain what had happened. She thought she had lost me or had been taken by someone while she was distracted. She had apparently been looking for me for a while. I still don't understand what happened really because the house wasn't even large or confusing to navigate. I still get chills when I think about it.
Yeah, that would freak me out too.
It's almost some alternate universe type of stuff there.
Yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Seriously. Just thrown into that little situation. And there's actually a small secondary story that comes with this. It's not from the same writer of the previous story, this is Forsaken Curtains. And something similar happened to them. This is just like a kind of Cliff Notes version. Something really similar happened to them in Canada. They were about 13 at the time, and they stayed in a 5-bedroom home. This was at their great aunt and uncle's house. They were like 3 siblings, the parents, the grandparents, in a 5-bedroom home. And the house, I guess, was like very large, 3 floors. It had a basement. The basement itself was a 2-bedroom apartment. And it had this like really creepy stairwell that went down to the basement apartment. Nobody ever went down there. Very creepy. So one day everyone went to go get coffees, or them and the brother stayed back at the house, and they were just kind of wandering through, doing their thing. The brother was on the couch, and all of a sudden the person could not find their brother. So they start going around the house, screaming his name, looking for him, all of these things. And they started to go into the basement. And as soon as their foot touched the bottom of the stairs to the basement, a feeling of dread and despair hit them. And they ran back upstairs, only to find their brother there. And at the same time, I guess they shouted, "Where were you?" Both of them had been looking for each other.
Yeah, I feel like I saw this in like a scene in Hill House when they were trying to find Nell when she was a kid.
Oh yeah, that's actually a really good comparison.
Yeah.
And I
That's what
would
it feels
maybe
like.
I would maybe say this is like that, like they got it off of Hill House, but this was written about 4 years ago. So this is a 4-year-old story. Is that about the time Hill House came out?
I want to say it was like, what, 2018, 2019? I don't know. It was a good year for horror.
It was a really good year for horror. That was a great. But regardless, both of them had been looking for each other, screaming out their names, running around. And I guess the brother said that he had actually been on the couch, and
Just missed them.
the original poster was just like, I looked there several times. Like, I didn't know where you were. It was a crazy story. I just thought it was interesting that there was more than one experience of the same kind.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah.
I get you. Well, my next story comes from Appropriate Moose.
Like, I love these names.
They're always they're always creative. My username is so generic. It's
Mine
stupid.
is also not great, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not 100% sure this fits because my mom confirmed it years ago, then denied it when I asked her again a couple months ago. But here it is. When I was little, my dresser, it was long but pretty short, sat against the wall with one of the ends pointed to my door. That dresser is heavy, an old wood one with all sorts of kid crap neatly arranged on top. Sounds like mine. Since it was in my bedroom, the floor was carpet. I always slept with the door closed. One night, with no explanation, the dresser tipped over, but instead of falling forward, it fell 180 degrees to the side, falling in front of my door, all the kid crap spilling to the side. My mom ran to get me, but couldn't open the door as it was being blocked by the dresser. Eventually, with her pushing and me pulling on the dresser, she was able to slip in and move the dresser out of the way. Nothing was damaged, not even the glass figurines I had. My dad helped put it upright the next day and we moved on. Years later, I remembered the incident and asked my mom about it, expecting to learn that I blew it out of proportion and it only fell forward or something like that. Nope, she remembered that night as well. However, she added one detail I could never figure out. She thought she heard me jumping on the bed that night. I know. That's not cool at all. And that's why she thought the dresser tipped over. I had been asleep. I have no idea where she heard that noise coming from.
I guess that's like, no.
That's just unsettling. A little unsettling.
It's a little unsettling.
I would definitely ask if she was sure.
I know, right? Well, you sure you heard that? I mean, to be fair, though, no matter what, the dresser falling and going 180 degrees
is weird. That's weird.
All right. Well, with that being said, I have my last story for the night. Someone by the username doggonefantastic.
Another good one.
Another good one. When I was a kid, my family lived in a blue house that was oddly shaped. One year, the house was completely gutted and nearly destroyed by a flood, and they had to knock down a wall between the living room and the kitchen. So after the flood, we could see all the way down the hall to my parents' bedroom door. The house was strange for a lack of a better term. I was a terrible sleeper as a kid and would routinely wake up and just go into the living room and watch cartoons on a low volume if I couldn't go back to sleep.
Me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did the same thing. Oh, I did the same thing. One morning, I'm out in the living room, sitting across the chair with my feet up on the window. Don't ask me why. I was a stupid 8 or 9-year-old kid. Yeah, no, guys, don't do that.
I mean, feels low-key.
Don't do that. That's so dangerous. And I'll tell you why that's dangerous in this next paragraph. From where the chair was, I could see just over the kitchen counter to the hall to my parents' room. A movement caught my eye, and I looked up and saw a shadowy outline of a man walking towards me, kind of near to my parents' door. Thinking it was my dad, I said something like, "Hey, Dad, I'm sorry if the TV is too loud." My dad is a notorious light sleeper and would wake up from anything. My grandpa. Oh my gosh, that was my grandpa.
That was my mom.
Except there was no response. Within seconds, my foot ends up going through the window, and that's why you don't do that. Again, not sure if this was related or if I was just a dumb kid. Likely the latter. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure to put on a window.
It's fine.
And I screamed, and my parents actually woke up to figure out what's going on at 4:30 in the morning. I like how he says his father is a light sleeper, and he's like, my parents actually woke up to my screams. Sorry.
Well, I'm happy for him for that.
At this point, I'm preoccupied, but I realized much later that I definitely saw the outline of a man, but there was no way that it was my dad because A, he came bounding out of their room after my scream, and B, I realized that the shoulders of that outline were much higher than what my dad's would have been. Fast forward a few years, and we've moved far away from the blue house, and my mom and I are hanging out and catching up. For some reason, the blue house comes up, and I tell my mom that the place still gives me the creeps and that weird stuff happened there when I was a kid. My mom's response, "Oh, you must have seen the shadow man too."
No. What do you mean? What? Is that why we moved?
Right? Well, that's what I want to know. I'm like, did we move because there's just like a shadow man hanging out?
Who says that so casually? Oh, it's just a shadow man.
Well, and the fact that it was outside the parents' bedroom, like how could you as the parent sleep calmly?
With a kid.
Yeah, with a kid. Knowing that there's just like a shadow figure that's going to pop outside your room at any moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would like a warning, especially if I like to watch cartoons late at night, you know?
Oh my goodness.
Because I did that all the time. Like, Inuyasha and shit.
Oh, that was my jam.
It was the only thing on.
Yeah, Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know. And we should not have been watching that stuff as kids, but
it was very gory.
It was very, you know, half the time that I was awake at night was because I read some silly, like, creepy pasta and had nightmares about the most ridiculous things.
Yeah, I had pretty brutal nightmares too sometimes.
Yeah, that's why I was up at 4:30 in the morning continuing to traumatize myself with things like Inuyasha.
Yeah, demons fighting demons. Oh God, people getting slaughtered. Huh.
Very bloody, very gory. Perfect way to fall asleep after having a nightmare about some creepy pasta.
I could not name a better way. All right. So my last story, and the last story for the night, is from a user, icantrecallaccnt. Succinct. When I was 9 or 10, my dad took me to visit an older hunting buddy of his. My parents were divorced and my dad lived in another part of the country. So while I had known this guy since I was a toddler, I didn't share the same common interests as either of them. The older friend was a gun dealer and had lots of catalogs. This was before the internet was in wide use, to order bullets, magazines, guns, etc. And they often spent hours going through the listings to determine what they wanted to order. We got there fairly early, and my dad said that after an hour or two, we'd all go to Hardee's for breakfast before going to shoot clay birds.
Hey, honey, Hardee's.
I know, man. It is the southern treat, dude. I miss Hardee's so much. The Frisco burger, the best.
I don't know much about Hardee's. I had a milkshake there once.
And it was delicious, I'm sure.
It was actually
They make you wait
good.
for it, too.
Oh, they do.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah, their customer service is lackluster.
It's just part of the Hardee's family.
You know, you do say that a lot.
If you're not waiting, it's not Hardee's. Now, I'm a youngin'. I don't care much about guns or hunting for sport, and am just incredibly bored, so I start wandering around the house, reading my video game magazines that I brought with me, and very quickly that hour or two had passed, and they're still down there. I ask if they're going to leave anytime soon, and the friend suggests I check the refrigerator in the kitchen and see if there's anything I want to eat. I look through the fridge and find nothing. However, on the kitchen table, I see an apple and decide that will be appetizing enough to hold me over. As I pick up the apple and prepare to take a bite, at that point, his wife steps in and tells me, "Don't eat that. Everything in that bowl is wax."
Oh, thank you for the warning.
Yeah, for real, that would be gross. I tell her thank you for warning me and continue to wander around the house burning time until we can get going. Maybe another 30 minutes later, I go back to the basement where they're all going through the catalogs and ask when we are going to Hardee's. My dad's friend asks if I'm still hungry after going through the fridge.
Okay, I'm going to be really annoyed at this point. It has been like 2.5 hours. Please Feed your children.
As a kid, that would be the worst. It's just the staring boredom. Oh my God.
Gosh, while waiting for like your favorite restaurant or just food in general.
Ugh, nasty. I tell him that I was going to eat an apple, but his wife told me it was wax before I made the mistake. Both of them give me a blank stare, and after about 20 seconds of shock, my dad explains that his wife recently passed away.
Oh, helpful ghost.
Helpful ghost. I then go back through the house to try and find her to show that they were just joking with me, but sure enough, she was nowhere to be found. Roughly 30 years before he passed away, my dad still insisted that I must have imagined it, but I didn't. She told me not to eat the wax fruit.
My grandfather's ghost would be like, take a bite.
My ghost would probably say the same thing.
My grandfather
I would show up just for that. I'd be like, oh, this is going to be great.
My grandfather was alive. He tricked me into taking a bite of an apple. That was not real.
Well, some ghosts are nicer than others, I guess.
You know, he was just the jokester kind. She was nice. My grandfather would have been like, no, it's great. Please take a bite. It's delicious.
Well, I'm happy that he had a kind of a positive experience with the ghost, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a very lighthearted way to end our night.
Yeah, she must have really liked those apples. Probably bought them herself.
She probably did pick those. You know that man did not pick those.
From potpourri.
That hunter did not pick out those apples.
No, it'd be like a deer skull or something.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Well, friends, that's all we have for the night. So we'll see you guys later. Stay spooky.
Stay spooky, folks.